All right, so book four is a bit of a long one, and so I broke it up into two parts. And where we left off was you had Menelaus, and he was stuck on this island. And so this goddess, this daughter of Proteus, the ancient of the sea, she is giving him advice on how he can get off of this island. So Menelaus is telling the story to Telemachus, pretty much just explaining how he's getting home, but also he'll be bragging a little bit about how strong he is. Um, and so we begin. Meanwhile, the Nereid swam from the lap of ocean laden with four sealskins, new flayed for the hoax she thought of playing on her father. In the sand, she scooped out hollows for our bodies and sat down waiting. We came close to touch her, and, betting us, she threw the sealskins over us, a strong disguise, oh yes, terribly strong, as I recall the stench of those damned seals. Would any man lie snug with a sea monster? But here the nymph again came to our rescue, dabbing ambrosia under each man's nose, a perfume drowning out the bestial odor. So there we lay with our beating hearts all morning while seals came shoreward out of the ripples, jostling to take their places, flopping on the sand. At noon, the ancient issued from the sea and held inspection, counting off the sea beasts. We were the first he numbered. He went by, detecting nothing. When at last he slept, we gave a battle cry and plunged at for him, locking our hands behind him. But the old one's tricks were not knocked out of him, far from it. First he took on a whiskered lion's shape, a serpent then, a leopard, a great boar, then sousing water, then a tall green tree. Still we hung on by hook or crook through everything, until the ancient saw defeat and grimly opened his lips to ask me. Okay, so here we have the plan goes perfectly. You've got the daughter of Proteus. She hides Menelaus and his men under these sealskins, which he's like smelt terrible. And so she gives him some ambrosial to put under his nose, which is like a really nice smelling perfumish. It's also what the gods eat. Anywho, when Proteus comes by, he doesn't notice that they're not seals. They're, in fact, men hiding under sealskins. And so when Proteus takes a nap, Menelaus and his men jump out, and they're able to hold on to him as he shapeshifts to all of these different things, even when he shapeshifts into water. So, yes, Menelaus must just be miraculously strong. Eventually, Proteus gives up, and he's going to ask, Son of Atreus, other words, Menelaus, who counseled you to this? A god? What god? Set a trap for me? Overpower me? Why? He bit it off then, and I answered, Old one, you know the reason. Why feign not to know? High and dry, so long upon this island, I'm at my wits' end, and my heart is sore. You gods know everything. Now you can tell me. Which of the immortals chained me here? And how will I get home on the fish-cold sea? He made reply at once, You should have paid honor to Zeus and the other gods, performing a proper sacrifice before embarking. That was your short way home on the wine-dark sea. You may not see your friends, your own fine house, or enter your own land again, unless you first remount the Nile in flood and pay your hecatomb to the gods of heaven. Then and only then the gods will grant you the passage you desire. All right, so Menelaus asks Proteus, Why am I stuck here? Why won't the gods let me get home? And pretty much it's because Menelaus did not offer the proper sacrifice to the gods before he left. Ah, how my heart sank hearing this, hearing him send me back on the cloudy sea in my own track, the long, hard way of Egypt. Nevertheless, I answered him and said, Ancient, I shall do as you command. But tell me now, the others, had they a safe return? All those Achaeans who stayed behind when Nestor and I left Troy? Or were there any lost at sea? What bitterness! Any who died in camp after the war? To this he said, Sorry, I had a throat tickle there. So to this he said, For you to know these things goes beyond all necessity, Menelaus. Why must you ask? You should not know my mind, and you will grieve to learn it, I can tell you. Many there were who died, many remain, but two high officers alone were lost. On the passage home, I mean. You saw the war. One is alive, a castaway at sea. The other, Aias, perished with all hands, though first Poseidon landed him on Girai promontory, and saved him from the ocean. Despite Athena's hate, he had lived on, but the great sinner, in his insolence, yelled that the gods' will and the sea were beaten, and this loud brag came to Poseidon's ears. He swung the trident in his massive hands, and in one shock, from top to bottom, split that promontory, toppling it into the sea, the fragment where the great fool sat. So the vast ocean had its will with Aeneas, drunk in the end on salt spume as he drowned. Meanwhile, your brother left that doom astern in his decked ships. The Lady Hera saved him, but as he came round Malea, a fresh squall caught him, bearing him away over the cold sea, groaning in disgust, to the land's end of Argos, where Thyestes lived in the days of old, and then his son Aegisthus. Here's where we hear the Agamemnon story again, that story where Aegisthus is going to kill Agamemnon because he's having an affair with Agamemnon's wife. Now again return seemed easy. The high gods wound the wind into the east, and back he sailed this time to his own coast. He went ashore and kissed the earth in joy, hot tears blinding his eyes at sight of home. But there were eyes that watched him from a height. A lookout paid 2 bars of gold to keep vigil the year round for Aegisthus' sake, that he should be forewarned, and Agamemnon's furious valor sleep unroused. Now this man with his news ran to the tyrant, who made his crooked arrangements in a flash, stationed picked men at arms, a score of them of men in hiding, set a feast in the next room. Then he went out with chariots and horses to hail the king and welcome him to evil. He led him into banquet, all serene, and killed him, like an ox felled at the trough, and not a man of either company survived the ambush in Aegisthus' house. Before the end of my heart was broken down, I slumped on the trampled sand and cried aloud, caring no more for life or the light of day, and rolled there weeping till my tears were spent. Then the unerring ancient said at last, "No more, no more, how long must you persist? Nothing is gained by grieving so. How soon can you return to Argos? You may take him alive there still, or else meanwhile Orestes will have dispatched him. You'll attend the feast." At this my heart revived, and I recovered the self-command to question him once more. Of 2 companions now I know. The third? Tell me his name, the marooned at sea. Living, you say, or dead? Even in pain, I wish to hear. So Menelaus heard about this Aeneas guy who dies and drowns at sea. He hears about how his brother Agamemnon is killed by Agamemnon's wife and the man that Agamemnon's wife was having an affair with. And now Menelaus is asking about the third one, which will be Odysseus. And this is all he answered. Laertes' son, Odysseus, whose home is Ithaca, I saw him weeping, weeping on an island. The nymph Calypso has him in her hall. No means of faring home are left him now, no ship with oars, and no ship's company to pull him on the broad back of the sea. As to your own destiny, Prince Menelaus, you shall not die in the blue-grass land of Argos. Rather, the gods intend you for Elysium, with golden Rhadamanthus at the world's end, where all existence is a dream of ease. Snowfall is never known there, neither long frost or winter, nor torrential rain, but only mild and lulling airs from ocean bearing refreshment for the souls of men, the west wind always blowing. For the gods hold you as Helen's lord, a son of Zeus. At this he dove under a swell and left me, and I went back to the ship with my companions, feeling my heart's blood in me running high. But in the long hole's shadow near the sea, we supped again as sacred night came on, and slept at last beside the lapping water. All right, so he finds out about Odysseus being on Calypso's island, and also Menelaus, again, he's telling this story. So he's again bragging to Telemachus and saying, oh, and Proteus also told me that I will be going to the best place in the underworld when I die. I'll be going to Elysium. So things end well for Menelaus. When dawn spread out her fingers tips of rose, in first light we launched on the courtly breakers, setting up masts and yards in the well-found ships, went all on broad, and braced on planks athwart, oarsmen in line-dipped oars in the grey sea. Soon I drew into the great stream, fed by heaven, and, laying by, slew bulls in the proper number, until the immortal gods were thus appeased. Then heaped a death mound on that shore against all quenching time for Agamemnon's honor, and put to sea once more. The gods sent down a stern wind for a racing passage homeward. He gives his offerings to the gods. He gives an offering for Agamemnon, since Agamemnon has died, so in honor of him. And now the gods are letting him get home. So ends the story. Now you must stay with me and be my guest 11 or 12 days more. I'll send you on your way with gifts and fine ones, 3 chariot horses and a polished car, a hammered cup too, so that all your days, tipping the red wine for the deathless gods, you will remember me. Telemachus answered, Lord, son of Atreus, no, you must not keep me. Not that a year with you would be too long. I never could be homesick here. I find your tales and all you say so marvelous. But time hangs heavy on my shipmates' hands at holy Pylos if you make me stay. As for your gift now, let it be some keepsake. Horses I cannot take to Ithaca. Let me bestow them back on you to serve your glory here. My lord, you rule wide country, rolling and rich with clover, galingale, and all the grains, red wheat and hoary barley. At home we have no level runs or meadows, but highland, goatland, prettier than plains though. Grasses and pastures land are hard to come by upon the islands tilted in the sea, and Ithaca is the island of them all. So pretty much, Menelaus wants to give him a bunch of gifts, one of those being horses, and what we know of Ithaca, it is seagirt Ithaca. It is rocky. It is not a good land for horses. So he says, no, you keep the horses. They won't do any good in Ithaca. At this, the deep-lunged man of battle smiled. This is Menelaus. Then he said kindly, patting the boy's hand, you come of good stock, lad. That was well spoken. I'll change the gift then, as indeed I can. Let me see what is costliest and most beautiful of all the precious things my house contains. A wine bowl, mixing bowl, all wrought of silver, but rimmed with hammered gold. Let this be yours. It is Hephaestus' work, given me by Phidemos, captain and king of Sidon. He received me during my travels. Let it be yours, I say, which is a huge gift. Hephaestus is a god who creates things. He's the one who, with the Cyclops, created the trident, I believe, for Poseidon. And so to get a gift that was made by Hephaestus is huge. This was their discourse on that morning. Meanwhile, guests were arriving at the great lord's house, bringing their sheep and wine and the ease of men, with loaves their comely chief, sorry, kerchiefed women sent to make a feast in hall. At that same hour, before the distant manor of Odysseus, the suitors were competing at the discus throw and javelin on the measured field they used, arrogant lords at play. Okay, so now we're switching scenes, pretty much. We're done with Menelaus. Now we're going back to Ithaca and seeing what's happening there while Telemachus is on this journey. The two best men, Antinous and Eurymachus, presided. Now Phronius' son, Noemon, came to see them with a question for Antinous. He said, do any of us know or not, Antinous, what day Telemachus will be home from Pylos? He took my ship, but now I need it back to make a cruise to Elis, where the plains are. I have a dozen mares at pasture there, with mule colts yet unweaned. My notion is to bring one home and break him in for labor. Right. His first words made them stare, for they knew well Telemachus could not have gone to Pylos, but inland with his flocks, or to the swineherd. Eupeithes' son, Antinous, quickly answered, tell the story straight. He sailed? Who joined him? A crew he picked up here in Ithaca, or his own private slaves? He might have done it that way, and you will make it clear whether he took the ship against your will. Did he ask for it? Did you lend it to him? So at this point, the suitors had not noticed that Telemachus was gone. Okay, not until this man comes up and he says, I want my ship back. Do you know where Telemachus is? And now Antinous is trying to figure out, wait, when did Telemachus leave? What's going on here? Now said the son of Phronius in reply, lent it to him and freely. Who would not when a prince of that house asked for it in trouble? Hard to refuse the favor, it seems to me. As for his crew, the best men on the island, after ourselves, went with him. Mentor I noted going aboard, or a god who looked like Mentor, hint, hint, Athena. The strange thing is, I saw Lord Mentor here in the first light yesterday, although he sailed 5 days ago for Pylos. Turning away, Noemon took the path to his father's house, leaving the two men there, baffled and hostile. They called the rest in from the playing field and made them all sit down, so that Antinous could speak out from the storm cloud of his heart, swollen with anger and his eyes ablazed. A bad business Telemachus had the gall to make that crossing, though we said he could not. So the young cub rounds up a first-rate crew in spite of all our crowd and puts to sea. What devilment will he be up to next time? Zeus blast the life out of him before he's grown. Just give me a fast ship and 20 men. I'll intercept him, board him in the strait between the crags of Sami and this island. He'll find his sea adventure after his father's swamping work in the end. They all cried, "Aye!" and "After him!" and trailed back to the manor. So now that they know that Telemachus is starting to step up, he's starting to take charge, leading men, and men are following him to find out news about his dad, Antinous and Eurymachus are getting threatened, all right, as suitors by Telemachus. And so they're planning to kill him, intercept Telemachus's ship when Telemachus is coming home, and then kill him. Now, not much time went by before Penelope learned what was afoot among the suitors. So now Penelope knows that one, Telemachus is gone, and that the suitors are planning to kill him. Medon the crier told her. He had been outside the wall and heard them in the court conspiring. Into the house and up the stairs he ran to her with his news upon his tongue. But at the door Penelope met him, crying, "Why have they sent you up here now? To tell the maids of King Odysseus, leave your spinning, time to go down and slave to feed those men? I wish this were the last time they came feasting, courting me, or consorting here. The last! Each day you crowd this house like wolves to eat away my brave son's patrimony. When you were boys, did your own fathers tell you nothing of what Odysseus was for them? In word and act impeccable, disinterested toward all the realm, though it was is king's justice to hold one man abhorred and love another. No man alive could say Odysseus wronged him." So pretty much Penelope's complaining about this current situation and then also saying, Odysseus was such a good king to you. How can you all be allowing the suitors to take advantage of us like this? But your own hearts, how different, and your deeds, how soon are benefactions all forgotten. Now Medon, the alert and cool man, answered, "I wish that were the worst of it, my lady, but they intend something more terrible. May Zeus forfend and spare us. They plan to drive the keen bronze through Telemachus when he comes home," the keen bronze being like to spear him. "He sailed away, to hallowed Pylos and old Lacedaemon for news about his father." Did Penelope know? Her knees failed and her heart failed as she listened to the words, and all her power of speech went out of her. Tears came, but the rich voice could not come. Only after a long while she made answer. "Why has my child left me? He had no need of those long ships on which men shake out sail to tug like horses, breasting miles of sea. Why did he go? Must he, too, be forgotten?" Then Medon, the perceptive man, replied, "A god moved him, who knows, on his own heart, sent him to learn at Pylos if his father roams the wide world still, or what befalls him. He left her then and went down through the house, and now the pain around her heart benumbed her. Chairs were a step away, but far beyond her. She sank down on the door sill of the chamber, wailing, and all her women, young and old, made a low murmur of lament around her, until at last she broke out through her tears. "Dearest companions, what has Zeus given me? Pain, more pain than any living woman. My lord, my lion heart, gone long ago, the bravest man and best of the Danaans, famous through Hellas and the Argive midlands, and now the squalls have blown my son, my dear one, an unknown boy, southward. No one told me. O brute creatures, not one soul would dare to wake me from my sleep. You knew the hour he took the black ship out to sea. If I had seen that sailing in his eyes, he should have stayed with me for all his longing, stayed or left me dead in the great hall. Go someone now and call old Dolius, the slave my father gave me before I came, my orchard keeper. Tell him to make haste and put these things before Laertes. He may plan some kind of action. Let him come to cry shame on these ruffians who would murder Odysseus' son and heir and end his line." So she's just very sad. Her husband's gone, her son's gone. What is there to live for? The dear old nurse Euryclea answered her, "Sweet mistress, have my throat cut without mercy, or what you will. It's true. I won't conceal it. I knew the whole thing. Gave him his provisions, grain and sweet wine I gave, and a great oath to tell you nothing till 12 days went by, or till you heard of it yourself, or missed him. He hoped you would not tear your skin lamenting. Come, bathe and dress your loveliness afresh, and go to the upper rooms with all your maids to ask for help from Athena, Zeus's daughter. She it will be who saves this boy from death. Spare the old man this further suffering. The blissful gods cannot so hate his line, heirs of Archesios, one who will yet again be lord of all the tall house and the far fields. So Euryclea is trying to comfort her. She, sh- she hushed her weeping in this way and soothed her. The lady Penelope arose and bathed, dressing her body in her freshest linens, filled a basket with barley, and led her maids to the upper rooms, where she besought Athena. Tireless child of Zeus, graciously hear me. If ever Odysseus burned at our altar fire thigh bones or of beef or mutton in sacrifice, remember it for my sake. Save my son. Shield him and make the killers go astray. She ended with a cry, and the goddess did hear her. Now voices arose from the shadowy hall below where the suitors were assuring one another. Okay, so Penelope is praying to Athena, Athena is listening, and now we're going back to the suitors. Our so long courted queen is even now of a mind to marry one of us, and knows nothing of what is destined for her son. Oh, how wrong you are. Of what was destined they in fact knew nothing, but Antinous addressed them in a whisper. No boasting, are you mad? And no loud talk. Someone might hear it and alarm the house. Come along now, be quiet, this way. Come, we'll carry out the plan our hearts are set on. Picking out 20 of the strongest seamen, he led them to a ship at the sea's edge, and down they dragged her into deeper water, stepping a mast in her with furled sails, and oars a trail from throngs looped over thole pins. Ready all, they tried this white sail, hoisting, while men at arms carried their gear aboard. They moored the ship some way offshore, and left her to take their evening meal there, waiting for night to come. Penelope at that hour in her high chamber lay silent, tasting neither food nor drink, and thought of nothing but her princely son. Could he escape, or would they find and kill him? Her mind turning at bay, like a cornered lion in whom fear comes as a hunter's close the ring. But in her sick thought sweet sleep overtook her, and she dozed off, her body slack and still. Now it occurred to the gray-eyed goddess Athena to make a figure of dream in a woman's form. Iphtime, great Icarius's other daughter, so sister to Penelope, whom Eumelus and Phaerae took as bride, the goddess sent this dream to Odysseus's house to quiet Penelope and end her grieving. So, in other words, Athena, while Penelope is asleep, takes on the disguise of Penelope's sister. So, passing by the strap slit through the door, the image came a gliding down the room to stand at her bedside and murmur to her. Sleepest thou, sorrowing Penelope? The gods whose life is ease no longer suffer thee to pine and weep. Then he returns unharmed, thy little one, no way hath he offended. Then pensive Penelope made this reply, slumbering sweetly in the gates of dream. Sister, hast thou come hither? Why, aforetime never wouldst come, so far away thy dwelling. And am I bid be done with all my grieving? But see what anguish hath my heart and soul. My lord, my lion heart, gone, long gone, the bravest man and best of the Danaans, famous through Hellas and the Argive midlands, and now my son, my dear one, gone seafaring, a child untrained in hardship or in counsel. Ay, 'tis for him I weep more than his father. Ay, how I tremble for him, lest some blow befall him at men's hands or on the sea. Cruel are they, and many who plot against him, to take his life before he can return. Now the dim phantom spoke to her once more. Lift up thy heart and fear not overmuch, for by his side one goes whom all men else invoke as their defender, one so powerful, Pallas Athena. In thy tears she pitied thee, and now hath sent me so that I so assure thee. So this phantom, this image of Penelope's sister, is telling Penelope, Athena is watching out for Telemachus, and he will be safe, so you don't have to worry. Then said Penelope the wise, If thou art numinous, and hast ears for divine speech, O tell me, what of Odysseus, man of woe? Is he still alive somewhere? Seeth he day light still? Or gone in death to the sunless underworld? The dim phantom said only this in answer. Of him I may not tell thee in this discourse, alive or dead, and empty words are evil. The wavering form withdrew along the door belt into a draught of wind, and out of sleep Penelope awoke in better heart for that clear dream in the twilight of the night. Meanwhile the suitors had got under way, planning the death plunge for Telemachus. Between the isles of Ithaca and Sami, the sea is broken by an islet, Asteris, with access to both channels from a cove. In ambush here that night the Achaeans lay. All right, and that is where this book ends. So this chapter ends. We have the suitors waiting for Telemachus to sail back home, and they're going to attack his boat as he sails back to Ithaca from first Sparta and then Pylos as he's coming back from there. They plan to kill him. And we've got Penelope, who has been reassured by her sister in a vision by Athena, that Athena is watching out for Telemachus. So we'll see what happens next. Book 5 is where this book, the Odyssey, actually gets really interesting. We actually get to see Odysseus and his travels and adventures, which are so much more action packed than these first 4 chapters. But we've got our setup. All right, thanks. See you later.